dirty.
Welcome everyone to the late game, episode 27. This is our DreamHack Open Tours post DreamHack show. With me, I have Nathanias, PengWin, and Gemini. Today we're going to be talking about some of the excellent gameplay that we saw over this weekend. First off, a little bit of introductions. Nathanias, caster, analyst. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Doing absolutely great. It's been a fun day.
Awesome. How was your trip back from tours? Or tour? How do you say it?
It was two. Like two. Yeah, it was good. I mean, I had a really long flight. Obviously, I was like sitting between some guy who was like too nerdy even for my taste, and what seemed to be a meth head mom.
Wonderful.
But there was Wi-Fi. There was Wi-Fi on the 12-hour flight, so that made up for it.
Well, awesome. Gemini, this is your first time on the show. Welcome. How you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Good. And PengWin, back from last week. Fresh off your defeat from StarCraft Celebrity Jeopardy. How's that feel?
All right, I'm gonna be hanging up now and just leaving the show. It's all good. It's all good. Juventus just tied it up against Real Madrid, so life is looking a little better now.
This
Watching
is
soccer during the show.
Champions League semifinals, man. So
where's the
much money on
passion?
the line.
Don't you understand that you can't watch other sports?
One game, StarCraft, no other games.
No other. You can't even play like Go Fish with your family. It's StarCraft only. So
I like that. I like that you trust me enough to like. I like that you think my family wants to play games.
yes, I do. I mean, I'd hope they would, but either way, real quick, Gemini. If you look at the panel for this call, at the bottom left, you'll see settings.
Yeah.
Can you click that button and then you see it says automatically adjust microphone?
Yep.
Can you unclick that?
I did.
All right, and can you turn your mic up a couple of notches?
Okay, I'll try.
Turn mine up a little bit for you, baby girl. Just for you.
It's all the way up.
All the way up? All right, cool. You just had to speak up a little bit. You're a little low, but
okay.
Thank you, sir. Anyway, let's go into this. First of all, DreamHack went down this weekend. Excellent series of games. First, we're going to talk about Hyun. PengWin, we haven't seen a lot of Hyun over the last year. He seemed to be in a pretty high spot at the end of 2013, early 2014, but haven't seen much of him in the later part of 2014 and 2015. But now we're starting to see him again. Where is he as a player in the StarCraft scene?
I think so this DreamHack actually kind of raises more questions than answers with Hyun, because obviously he had a semifinal run, right? So he's definitely still got it. He's definitely still a good player. But if you look at his run, he had definitely, I would say, the easiest run of anybody in the semifinals. Like, if we look at the people he actually had to play against, he started off with, he finished second in his first group. He lost against Lilbao, and then he beat out Mini Razor, and he beat Kenjo as well. So, I mean, already a little bit of a shaky start, losing to Lilbao 2-0. And then he beat MC, who's kind of up and down, I would say a little bit out of form himself recently. And then he beat Fantasy, which is an impressive result on paper, but that was also a bit of a controversial result.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to tell how much bearing that has. And then he 3-0'd Harstem, and then he just got kind of stomped by Parting.
Right.
So, like, the 3-0 against Harstem, he looked really solid. 3-1 against Parting, he looked not so solid. So it's kind of hard to really say where he is right now, because, like, he had a really good run in the qualifiers for, I think it was Gfinity. He took out a bunch of really strong Terran players, but all told, I think it kind of shows that, like, he definitely has what it takes to be top tier again. But I think the more important result is going to be, it's going to be really important, for instance, to see how he does in SSL, because he is in the round of 16 for SSL, which is a good result. But he's got that's his opportunity to kind of show us how good he's going to be. He's going to be playing off in a group against Dream, Sulky, and Classic. So if he can make it out of that group, then I have faith that Hyun is back. But until then, not so much.
Okay, Gemini, he did take a game off Parting. Now, was that a slip-up on Parting's part, or is Hyun, was that a show of dominance with Hyun? When Parting definitely shows a lot of dominance in PvZ.
I think that was definitely more of a slip up. It was on Vanny, the one that he won. I think he also was a gold based game too. So gold bases are like super annoying and tricky to deal with as Protoss right now against Zerg because there's no real good way to answer it. Like you can try to all in it, but it's really risky because they only need a low amount of drones so they can do it. Like because they have the gold base, so you get a lot more income. You can pump out a crap ton more units early, and you can still be fine. So it's kind of weird. There's only a few kind of early attacks that can really work. And macro game, if you're, it's kind of like you're starting off with the Zerg having 2 base saturation already in a way, because like you're trying to you're doing your normal setup, but with a gold base that has a crap ton more income. So it just puts you off scale a little bit. So it's just really awkward to actually play against that. And Parting seemed like he tried to do kind of both, but didn't really do it. I don't know. It seemed like he was going to try to attack, but then he just kind of got a little bit far behind with a weird attack early on. And it snowballed. Like, gold base is snowball super easy. So if you fuck up one time, it's not going to... It's really difficult to come back from that. So I think it was mostly just a slip up. Like, after that one game, you saw Parting, like, the next 3 games, he pretty much just went solid with everything. Like, there were no more gold bases, except for... Actually, wait, was Expedition also gold base? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, it was, but he dealt with that a lot better. But he just, like, crisped everything out a lot better, even on the last gold base game.
Right.
What he did was much more crisp and, like, well done compared to the first game. So it was mostly just a first game slip up.
Okay. Nathanias, when you look at these players, when you see someone like Hyun, who is showing consistent and inconsistent, performance, you see him go a 3-0 a series, and he'll go down 3-1 in a series. What is that in a player? Is that them certain matchups giving them trouble, or is that lack of confidence in their own play at the time when you see these players kind of coming back?
What exactly? Can you repeat that again?
Yeah. So when you see these players that at one time really top tier player kind of dips down in the results, and as they start to come back, but they don't keep it consistent, is that just them trying to find their footing again?
I think it comes down a lot to like how they prepare for different stuff. Like usually when players take big tournament wins, at least from what I've heard, it's like a big thing about them themselves like getting into the zone for a tournament, more so than it is them like being like at a really, really high level all the time. Because it's with how many tournaments there are, especially in StarCraft, it's very easy to see that people have a hard time maintaining that high level. So I think most of the time our perception of players that are like on downswings, it's more so like they're just they're kind of like playing at like a nominal level, but not really like they're just not like focused as much on a particular tournament compared to another. Like I'm not surprised that we see players come up and down. That's what makes the good players so good, because it's really, really hard for them to always be good.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the players and when we're seeing them matched up. As we watch the brackets finalized on day 1, we see day 2, we see who we have left, right? And you start to look at the matches and you're trying to assess, okay, how are they going to fare? So when you're seeing a series come up and you have 2 players, how far apart in skill can those players be and still expect the games to come down to in the moment decisions rather than their base skill level?
To me again, this one too?
Yep.
All right. This was the one that I was ready for. Like, you could pull that other question out of nowhere. So I think this one is like kind of a fun thing, because as a caster, it's a big part of your job, obviously, to make the games as entertaining as possible. And in some cases, you can, you could like joke around or whatever. At DreamHack, this was a little bit easier, obviously, because there's no like restraints on you. But to try to pitch that like a player can beat each other. The easiest example to give is when you look at like Parting versus Mana, right? There's very few people, and there's probably nobody that's really highly educated about the game that thought that Parting was going to lose to Mana, not because Mana's bad, but because Parting is just so much better than him. And when you have players like this come down, when you have like 2 guys like this, there wasn't as much trickery in this series as at least to me, I didn't see as much trickery in this series as you would expect in like a PvP. When people talk about Protoss versus Protoss, like mind games and whatnot, like what really happened? There were like battles with Blink, there was macroing for the most part. Parting just straight up outplayed Mana. There wasn't, as you said, there wasn't like a big moment where it was like, okay, I have a big choice that I need to make right now that's going to win or lose me this game. And being able to make a better decision helps. Like it doesn't come into play because I felt like Parting was never like in a position where he's going to make worse choices. it's really hard to sell series like that as close, I think, or as one guy actually having like a chance to win based on strategy. Uh, Hopefully that answers the question. A lot of the other matches, I actually, even the one-sided ones, still felt shouldn't have been as one-sided. Like even Hyun Harstem or Parting Rain, like obviously I did not expect 3-0s.
Yep. PengWin, from a player manager's perspective, you have players that see their matches coming beforehand. Maybe they talk to you the night before. Maybe, in other tournaments, you guys have a lot more time to discuss. But when that happens and you see the player, how are you and your players taking that approach to the matchup? Do you assess, okay, we've seen him have this performance, this is his base skill level compared to yours, you're going to have to compensate through maybe stronger macro, stronger micro, or do your players more go in with I'm going to make the decisions on the fly, and that's how I have to beat these people?
Well, as for how to play the game build orders wise, every player, in my opinion, should always go in with a game plan for every single game before the series is starting, right? Say if I'm going into a series, vetoes are done, I know the map's going to be, let's say I'm playing a ZBZ, and the first map's going to be, first map is Vani, second map is Echo, third map is Coda, right? So it's okay, first map is Vani. I have a build that works really well on Vani that I like to do, which is you run 6 links around. It's a build that Betrayus used to do. You run around the Overlord, harass a little bit, try to do economic damage, and follow up with a +1 Roach Helmet. Okay, I'm going to do that. Then in the next game on Echo, I'm going to go for an 8 pool because the rush distance is really, really short. And you should have that planned out before the series starts, in my opinion, because then what ends up happening is that if you try to make on-the-fly decisions as for builds, you can often get emotional and make less intelligent decisions. Say you lose a game and it's a macro game and you don't have builds planned out. Sometimes you'll have players be well, fuck it, I can't win a macro game. I'm just gonna all in every single game from now on. And that's a really dumb decision in a lot of cases. So the builds are generally planned out in advance. But for my job personally to help people get ready, it's I don't really do that much for them. I motivate them, I talk them up if they need it, and then I'll help them find resources. So for example, let's say player X has a group with let's say Hydra's a good example. Even though he's not one of my players, I helped Hydra prepare for WCS last season, where it was okay, he had this group, and the group included Firecake, for example. So I helped him find a lot of VODs about Firecake, and help them locate which streams they were on and stuff, because sometimes you can see the results, but it's very difficult to find the streams, and it takes a lot of time. So I'll do that for my players. Let's say for example, just take a hypothetical group right now. So if Betrayus asked me hypothetically, can you help me find the VODs of Bunny from DreamHack? Yeah, sure, I'll do that. I'll go find the VODs from DreamHack, but then I'll leave it up to them to just kind of do their own thing preparation wise, and then if they need my help, they can ask.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move now to one of the most exciting matches I found was Marine King and Gumiho. Nathanias, our Terran expert, talk us through the TVT in that series. What were your strengths? I really like the Thor play in the first part. You don't often see that a lot.
You're a fan of Thor play, huh?
I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah. So Marine King actually brought a pretty interesting style to this tournament that I wasn't expecting. I've had a harder time keeping up with Korean StarCraft, but I don't recall seeing that many TVTs of Marine King, especially the style that he busted out in this tournament. Which was basically a 2 base, 4 factory, which lines up with a lot of all-in plays. 2 base, 4 factory pushes were pretty popular against Protoss players when Akalon Waste was still in the map pool. It was it's kind of a build you occasionally mix in if you're really ballsy against Terrans, because it's super all-in. But he went for 2 base, 4 factory with a lot of medevacs and Hellbats rather than the average pure tank Hellbat push. So it felt really flimsy, but it worked so well against Bunny, and it gave him so much early game versatility since he could catch anything that would come after him with so many Hellions and Vikings. That was in my opinion, a very Gumiho way to play. But it was cool. Marine King brought something reasonably fresh to the table, and it made it pretty cool because it gets very tricky to handle plays like that when you don't see them terribly often or expect them, at least.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna go into game 2. This one was on Vani Research Station. Let's find it. So that's the Patience True game. That's the Gumiho Parting. Give me 1 minute. and we'll get this up. There we go. All right, so in this game, you guys have already seen the clip, but in the game, Gumiho goes for a push against Marine King. This is on Vonnie Research Station. The push gets shut down, and Marine King goes for a counterattack. When he goes to do the counterattack, though, it is up the ramp at the natural in his base. So let's see. It was at 457, I believe. That preparation. I had every link ready except this one. There we go. All right, cool. So, all right, sound is up. We're gonna let people watch this. Watch this attack.
And now is the time to strike, but can he break through to the heart of Gumiho?
I think at this point he can try to land the Vikings on top of the army. He can just drop all the Hellbats. There's so many Marines in this army for Gumiho. The Hellbats are going to kill them all within a single volley or two. He doesn't necessarily have to use a Medivacs to get on top, but, you know, why not?
Here we go. It's time to Doom drop all those Marines. The boosted Medivacs march forward, and he drops the Hellbats onto this. The Marines getting absolutely toasted once again. Hellbats walking up. Can Gumiho make the hold? He pushes Marine King back, and he won.
All right, we're going to stop it right there. So, Nathanias, as we saw in this segment, he goes up. He does drop all those Hellbats on top of the bio, but the bio moves back, and the rest of the force was stuck down there. They couldn't get up. He does have a siege tank with him. So what could he have done, really, to capitalize on that? Or should he have maybe taken the kill on the CC and contained?
Yeah, so this was like a really poorly taken engagement by Marine King. Like, this was actually atrocious as far as pushes go for a Terran player. And not to say that, you know, I obviously blah 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 blah, all the things about me not being better than him. Like, there's a couple things that you need to do. First of all, like, if you're gonna scan, to be like, can I drop this guy? And I think that was a scenario where, yes, he could do that push. He can make that work. Or there's a universe where it goes a lot better than it did in that game. And that universe involves using the Vikings before the fight. There were 2 Medivacs, and, like, you know, it's like, okay, Medivacs aren't going to win in the fight, but they help. It's every little bit counts. But there were 2 Medivacs he could have picked off before, like, during the drop or prior to the drop, in my opinion. Then he could land the Vikings and at least get some cannon fodder. Like, that push is all in enough that if you don't actually kill the other guy and you lose everything, you're fucked anyway. Like, it doesn't matter if he loses that fight and gets away with only his Vikings. Like, it's all ogre at that point. So, in my opinion, the best way to capitalize on that situation was to use the Vikings a little better. The Marines were able to run away to a corner where the Hellbats actually weren't able to get them in, like, the bottom left of his main base. But also, the one siege tank that he had never sieged up at any point during that fight or before it. Like, it was, like, he was able to get the tank by the ramp, and he just didn't siege it.
Right.
He sieges it just a second earlier. Like, one more shot, and all those red Marines can make the difference. It was just like a really poor taken. He didn't utilize the tank very well. He didn't utilize his Vikings at all. And when he dropped, it's like, so if you do that, you've got a solid, like, only 15, 16 supply that's just kind of doing nothing. And Hellbats are good, but obviously not that good.
All right, so at the end of the series, with Gumiho taking it the way he did, was this down to Gumiho being the better player, or was this the volatility of TVT?
Gumiho totally outplayed Marine King in that series. Like, Terran versus Terran at the highest level has been really, really tricky. And it's not even that it's, like, been forced into one place for the last year. Terran versus Terran has actually just been straight up rotating meta, like, endlessly. Like, the gas first stuff came in, but then like, people stopped going gas first as much, and people found better ways to deal with the gas first play. So then TVT went to 2-base play because people tried to go to 3-base play, but then everybody went for Doom drops for the next 6 months, and that brought us to about 2 or 3 months ago. 2 or 3 months ago, people stopped going for 3-base play. They, like, Terran versus Terran, pure 2-base, everybody's fucking 2-base, mass Marines, try to kill each other, or you could try to play mech very slowly, which still very tricky, because Terrans more often than not would deal some sort of damage to you in the early game, or with a big follow drop or something. Like, they would be able to take some sort of advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things taken into consideration, like, Terran versus Terran is put in a spot where if you want to play defensively, it's very risky. And Gumiho went for 3rd command center builds. I believe in every game. Maybe there was, like, 1 or 2 where he didn't. like I recall Gumiho in at least 2 of the games going for the 3 command centers. The game that we were discussing, he had that 3rd command center. That's where all of his forces were tucked by. So what Gumiho does by choosing builds like this in Terran versus Terran, given the current meta, is he opens the door for him to be safe in the event that his opponent like tries to all in him. Like all Gumiho is trying to do is survive a 2-base push so that he's just ahead. Like you don't have to deal any damage to Marine King. Like he does not have to harass Marine King. He doesn't have to do anything. And it's not like, obviously if he scouts and sees Marine King takes up 3rd base, then that changes. But like there was no point in that game, in that match, that series at all, where Gumiho was pressured to do damage to him. And that's what that style is about. Like for Gumiho, he chose to play that style because he knew Marine King was going to be aggressive. He knew that that's at least, very least, the current meta for Terran versus Terran.
Right.
I think he just played it really well. And Marine King not being able to make it work when his opponent is cutting corners by being greedy and just playing defensively, that just shows a little bit of, that comes back to Marine King's natural stubbornness, but also just Gumiho being really fucking good at StarCraft.
Yeah, it was an excellent series, and it was refreshing the way you talk about the change up for the TVT. It was definitely nice to see something different than just the straight up both rushing for gas and banshees, or Hellion drops and elevator pushes and things like that. It was definitely an exciting series. So we're going to now move and discuss Patience versus True. It was a ZVP and definitely one of the most exciting games we've seen in the year. It was very short, very short. So we're going to go over and we're going to watch. I actually have this clip already, so we're going to kick it and we'll watch this whole thing from the final engagement.
Coming, he gets
he gets surrounded with one of them.
But he's got 2 zealots here. There's more on the
one
way.
of those doesn't have hit points. Okay, no, yeah, with 2 more here. Patience should still be able to do this. Looking for the surround here, True.
This is it because he's got no probes left. It's just these zealots. He has to micro everything he's got. He's going to go back and forth. Is True going to do it? It is zealots versus drones in an all-out battle for game number 3. It is a complete control. Will he do it?
Oh my God!
The drones won.
All right, so that was just, for moments of hype. I can't imagine what it was like to be in the crowd right there. That was awesome. So let's talk strategy of it, aside from the awesomeness. I'm going to kick it over to you, Gemini. From this position, for both of these players, right, is there a way that either player could have handled this game? Because remember, one went for a proxy hatch, the other went for proxy 2-gate. Is there a way that either player could have handled it to secure a more definitive win rather than it coming down to a micro battle?
With the set openings, the proxy hatch versus proxy gate, it's always going to be on the micro battle. Like it's not gonna go into a macro game off of that. It's gonna be the game's gonna be over in like 10 minutes, no matter what. But there's a few things that happen from Patience inside that would have made the micro battle much easier and would have made him win that last couple of units. You wouldn't have obviously lost those. Like the second you started that video, you saw that one zealot die.
Yep.
That was, if he didn't lose that, then he would have obviously won that game completely. A lot of the times when he was going back and forth by the minerals, he did the first attack where he came in from 2 sides. He came from the top and one from the bottom to get onto the spine crawler. After that, after he killed the spine crawler, he kept moving around a lot. He kept going through all the different mineral patches instead of hold positioning inside the little cracks in them, so that way only 2 Zerglings could attack them at once. He kept weaving in and out for some reason. I don't know why he did that exactly. It could have, maybe it was nerves or whatever. I don't know exactly what it was, or maybe it was overconfidence. He was I can never lose this. I can do whatever I want right now. But if he didn't do that, he would not have lost that 3rd zealot. As you know, it came down to literally 1 swipe.
Yep.
One more swipe, and he would have won the game. It was 1 drone with 1 health. So all he needed was 1 more swipe in that entirety of the game, and he would have won. So if he held position in the cracks there and just kind of delayed a little bit, he also had zealots coming from the bottom that weren't actually with his army yet. So if he waited for those, then he would have been able to win that. Second thing is, before that, his probes were idle for a really long time. He moved them off the minerals because there were 2 Zerglings attacking them, but he never made them attack the Zerglings again. He actually lost a bunch of them to the 2 Zerglings. So if he was doing that, if he was paying attention to that a little better, he could have killed those 2 Zerglings, mined more minerals, and would have been able to get even more zealots out.
Yep.
So an even easier win. And then the last point would be to regen shields. You just run away. but I feel like, again, that's a really hard thing or a hard decision to make in that super close tense situation, to say like, okay, I have to run, like, because you have to think like, is that drone you can't think for a second, like, can that drone actually chase and actually kill my Zealot, or can I actually get away, like spread the gap or whatever. So that was like the last resort thing he could have possibly done, but he definitely could have solidified that much earlier.
Yep. And PengWin, from the Zerg perspective, anything different that could have been done? I mean, obviously the Zerg did win, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Gemini basically summed it up, all of the things that Patience did wrong. I feel like from the position of being in a proxy hatch versus a proxy 2-gate situation, Protoss should always win that. Unless it's like a hidden hatchery on like a 4-player map that wasn't like in the natural, like they can't find the hatchery maybe, but that's obviously like completely silly. Like in a situation like that, Protoss should win. True did, in my opinion, I think he did a very good job maximizing his opportunities to take the game. But yeah, I mean, that entire game was just more down to a myriad of mistakes from Patience. Any one of which, if that had been prevented, would have changed the outcome of the game. So very unfortunate for Patience. But yeah, I mean, True played it out as best as he could, and he ended up getting the win.
Yeah, it was
the thing that sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about is why he tried the 2-gate in the first place. Because literally almost every game I've seen of True, he always drone scouts. And the one time he doesn't is when he does that proxy hatch in this game. I think it was a teammate mind game kind of thing, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, like they obviously they are teammate. Like there are some teammates who don't practice very much. True and Patience, they are very close friends. I don't know if they actively practice a ton together, but I know that they spend a lot of time in the same houses. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're very, 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 very familiar with each other's PVCs. So it could just be that Patience figured this is probably a multi-layered mind game where it's Patience knows that True knows that Patience knows that he would drone scout, so he won't drone scout, so he can get a little bit of extra economy because there's no way Patience would cheese. Patience cheeses because he knows that True would think like that.
Yeah, it's definitely. There's no way, because he drone scouts almost every game I've ever seen. That wouldn't make sense. But it's whatever.
Okay. I just had someone ping me that Patience was on a 2-week vacation before this DreamHack and wasn't feeling confident going into these games. So
that's all bullshit. Kane was on a fucking vacation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, see, the thing is,
vacations mean nothing. Stefano never practiced. Apparently, we can't analyze.
No, but see, the thing is, you guys don't understand that. Like when Kane was in Cuba, we sent him to the Castro gaming house, which is where MVP is currently living, and it's where Bjorn spent a lot of his time. Bjorn spent a lot of his time in Kespa jail. So he was practicing with all of the gods there. Like Nest's been living there too.
So he wasn't on legit vacation.
So he was baiting us. He baited everybody.
That's what everyone said last week on the show. We were talking about, how much Kane did or did not practice, and everyone said it was all talk, and Kane was always practicing.
He did not legit though. He wasn't practicing at all.
Okay.
He was in Cuba, chilling on the beach, or something.
Smoking cigars, enjoying the life.
Probably
mojitos.
Probably
mojitos, señorita. Yeah.
All right.
Probably doing some señoritas as well. You know Kane.
Yeah, we know Kane with his fluffy base trade TV slippers on. So, yeah. So anyway,
base trade trademark.
So Gemini, sticking with Protoss, let's talk about Big Boy Parting versus Rain. Right, the games didn't seem to completely favor Parting. We saw a lot of excellent decision making from Rain and taking some critical advantages throughout the entire series, but he still lost 3-0. Despite that, is Rain's PvP on par with Parting?
So this game, or this series in general, shows exactly why I love PvP so much. So many Protoss hate it. They think it's like a no-skill, rock, paper, scissors matchup. I'm the complete opposite. I love it so much. And Parting is so good with everything. He all of his decisions in PvP seem so good. There's a thought behind all of them. I'm assuming you're gonna probably focus on, or you want me to focus more on the Expedition Lost game with the crazy Phoenix battles and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about that one mostly because I think the first game that was just Parting, defending the what was it, the gas steal. He did that really well, and then he just followed up, contained, and it was pretty easy from that. But the second game, he opened with the Phoenix Robo expand build, which is something I like doing a lot as well now too. SOS does it a lot as well. It's big, it's pretty popular in Korea at the moment because a lot of people used to go Blink. So Phoenix gets the Scout, Robo gets the Immortals. You can expand and pretty greedily behind it as well. It sets you up pretty good in the mid game. So he did the very greedy version of it though, where he only was on those 3 production facilities: 1 gate, 1 Stargate, and 1 Robo, and then expand. So it allowed Rain to get that cancel on the Nexus, which kind of put him in an awkward spot. So it looks like for a second, Parting is going to be ahead because he has all the Scout, he has the stuff to deal with the potential DTs with the Observer. He has the Immortal for Blink or whatever, and he has the expansion. But he's able to get the cancel, and all of a sudden it's flipped on its side, and now Rain is the one that can contain, expand, and macro behind him. But the weird thing is so confusing to me is why Rain went into the Phoenixes instead of just sitting on his 2 bases and macroing up anyway. He kind of tried to push the issue a little too much, a little too many times. Like he kept trying to end Parting on 1 base instead of just macroing up at home and solidifying the win really well. He tried to be really, really, really cute with the Phoenixes after Parting already started Phoenixes, which is so risky. Like going into Phoenix when the opponent already has a good 3+ already on the field, it's completely, you're so relying on them to just not see the Phoenix at all, and you catch them off guard. That was his plan originally, because if you get control of the Phoenix or the air battle with the Phoenix, you will roll. As you saw, eventually Parting was able to win off of 17 minutes plus, I think, like 18, maybe 20 minutes with the Phoenix count consistently on 1 base. He was able to win that somehow.
So with
no, sorry, go ahead.
So at the end of the day, looking at the series, was this more down to the nature of PvP than Rain's personal skill?
No, I think it was more Rain's skill, because this was Rain being too gimmicky. I don't know, maybe gimmicky, greedy is probably better. Gimmicky, greedy, whatever. He's being too risky, probably is the best word. He's being too risky. He didn't solidify what he had originally, which was a good foundation of denying the natural Parting, containing, and then being able to macro behind that. He never did that. He decided to go into Phoenix afterwards, which Parting catches before Rain can get more than Parting. And eventually it snowballs. Like, you get the first couple Phoenix battles in your favor. It looks like it's super close, but it actually really is. It doesn't even look like that. It is really close. But because Parting continues to make Phoenix for the rest of the game, because he knows the Phoenix battle will always win. If you have control of the air, you will definitely be able to take control of the ground. He knows that. He continues making Phoenix. Rain even continues making Phoenix again after he loses all of them, which is another really weird, confusing thing. So this is mostly Rain not being on the tier of Parting in this particular game exactly, and then Parting continues it through the rest of the series. But it was very risky for Rain to be able to do that kind of response instead of sitting back, getting maybe a cannon niche mineral line, macroing up because he had the base advantage. He could have had the probe advantage, but instead he tried to force something that wasn't going to work from the start. And Parting with his insane micro, like, a lot of people still would have lost that, but Parting's micro is also pretty ridiculous. So he was able to come out, and it was pretty clutch by Parting, but it was also, there's a lot of weird decisions by Rain, I think.
Yeah, PengWin, Rain, you're one of your players. Did you get to talk to?
Yeah, I mean, I just think his decision making throughout the entire series was really abysmal. Like, a lot of the things he didn't make very much sense, especially in the Expedition Lost game. He was in a position, like, very many times in the game where he basically could have won doing pretty much whatever he wanted, except for just making, like, even with making the Phoenixes, all he would have had to do was just sit home and defend. But he kept pushing out, and he kept trying to do damage, and I understand why. Like, the reason why he did that is because he knew that Parting was going to start mining out, so he wanted to force Parting to take trades, and even though they were not cost efficient, he wanted, like, his Parting would be mined out. But, like, even after the games, he said, like, I think the exact quote was something along the lines of, like, he saw me on the escalator because I was, like, coming down to say hi. He's like, "PengWin, sorry, me plan so stupid, so stupid." Like, I think he understood as well that, like, his decision making in the entire series was just, like, absolutely terrible. And like, I think he'd planned out the series pretty well, but his adapting in the games was just not really
you didn't flog
any
him.
semblance of sense.
Like, that second game is one of those games where in the moment, it feels right. It's like, okay, he's on one base. I have the advantage. I just won like 3 fights. I can kill him now, right? And then you don't. And then at the end, you're like, Jesus Christ, it's the easiest thing to fix in the world. I just sit back. I don't do anything. Like, just let him mine out, go on one base. Like, it's one of those things where as the game ends, you know instantly what you did wrong. And it's just one of those weird games, I think.
Yep. Talking about, what Parting can do with units, Nathanias, do you think Parting has the best control?
And he's up there, right? If you're a Protoss player, you better have close to the best control if you're going to be winning shit.
Him and Hero, I think, are tied up there.
CJ Hero, right?
Wow. All right. So
I mean, you're known for being a fanboy, so
you heard it first.
I think so. I think that's always been what defines Protoss players, hasn't it? There's what Protoss, like, how many Protoss players do we look at and we're like, oh, this guy is like phenomenal for his max.
Well, right. So to be a good Protoss player, you have to have it. But I think we can argue that Parting definitely has some of the best with the miracles we see him pull off.
He does. Parting is one of those guys where, like, oftentimes I'll be casting a game, and there's a map that 100% goes along with this. I can't remember which Zerg he was playing against, but Parting played a game on Expedition Lost. He played a PvZ on Expedition Lost at some point in this tournament. It might have been against, let me just look at the Zergs that he played. It might have been like the game versus Hyun, and I think it was.
Was it on DreamHack?
I think it was the DreamHack one that he played against Hyun, where he like went for like this kind of push or whatever. It didn't really do much, and then he just followed it up with like a bunch more gateways or something. Like,
yeah.
Like, and this is the kind of thing that when you're watching non-Korean players who are in basically the exact same scenario, Parting didn't really do much damage. The Zerg kind of got to do whatever they wanted to do, and Parting just went for a bunch of fucking gateways and killed them with mass gateway units. But like, there are a number of times I have seen players open up with slight aggression, fail, and then try to follow up for another push. Like, first example comes like people that I guess like aggressive Protoss is like Hawk, right? Like the number of times I've seen Hawk or Puck or some other Protoss fail with a push like that at like not the top level. Like, it always looks like it's totally hopeless. But watching Parting play, like, just this vibe, it's even like just the vibe he gives off. I was watching this game, and as he starts to stick the gateways, I'm like, I've seen this happen to so many other players, but I actually feel like Parting is still in an okay position because he's Parting. Like, for that reason alone, I'm like watching this game. I don't think I casted it, and I was just like, okay, I feel pretty confident for Parting because he's just that fucking good with his unit control, right? Like, I know every force field he drops is going to be perfect, and I'm pretty sure he won that map if I recall correctly as well. So it was like he just did this thing that most other players can't do, and just completely fucked up Hyun. Like, it was really, really well played. Like, it's super, super impressive. And if you watch games like that, like, I didn't even watch it closely enough myself to like give you any examples. But like, I swear, like, if if that's like a kind of game you look over the VOD of, if the replays were put out, you would have looked at that instead. But like, you look at that, like, there are going to be tiny things that you can see that very, very few other Protosses do. And to me, that's what makes Parting so special, because he can make, not even like this, like the big plays against like good opponents, like miracle plays when it doesn't look like he should be able to win.
Right. Exactly.
It's mostly his force fields. Like,
yeah,
I very rarely see Parting botch force field like really badly. It never happens. Every single set of force fields he hits is like completely perfect. They're all in the right set, like line or whatever. And even if they're not, like, sometimes they'll be like just barely off or something, but like the reset force fields, like the second set, like he'll do a first one, maybe a unit or two will come through, or like it'll end up making a little awkward. Then he does a second set that's absolutely like perfect, and it puts him back in the game. It's just like so confusing. I don't understand that he does it every single time. And the game on Expedition Lost specifically is because of the force fields and the way Hyun engages. He doesn't group up. He sees the army going, and he thinks he has the advantage, so he just beeline A moves right to the army, and everything funnels really in a straight line. So all of a sudden, all the Lings die first because they're faster than the Hydras. So all the Lings die immediately. The Hydras are all stuck behind the force fields, and they can't get to the army at all. And so he picks everything off chunk by chunk, and he does that so well every time. And I don't understand how he does it.
That's amazing control, and that's definitely why he's one of the best Protoss in the world. maybe the best. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But now we're going to move into the finals, right? The finals, Gumiho versus Parting. Extremely exciting. Viewers, if you have any questions that you want to ask about DreamHack, any gameplay at DreamHack, anything about the plays you saw, questions for our three experts here. I like that term. I think I'm going to start using it now after DreamHack.
Hey man,
but
Wax Angel's an expert. Everyone can.
So with our experts here, go to the Reddit thread. You can go ahead and post a question there, or if you have Twitter, just use the hashtag late game, and it'll pop up, and I'll be able to see. So anyway, with that, we're going to move into this. All right, so Gemini, back to you. We talked a little bit about Parting. We were talking about his control, but aside from his control with the force fields and all that, what makes Parting such a strong player, particularly in PvT and PvZ?
He has an extremely strong gut instinct. He will see an army, he will see a situation, a scenario, and he will act on it immediately, and he will not let up on that. He will see it, some form of weakness, and absolutely 100% punish that as much as he can. If he doesn't, then you see some weird things, and you get some scrappy games. It doesn't really work out maybe sometimes, but he still somehow pulls it out because of that ridiculous micro we were talking about before. But there's so many gut instincts that he does so well that's very difficult to analyze, but you can see them like game to game. Specifically, the Echo game in the finals versus Gumiho.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, even the casters, everyone's looking at him going Blink Stalker Colossus against Mech, and we're like, Blink Stalker Colossus versus Mech, this doesn't do anything. There's a very small time it can do something, and if it doesn't work then you're boned. There's like this timing while they're still building up, where if you hit with the critical massive Blink Colossus, you can break them, and you saw Parting try to do that a few times, but he was defended pretty good with the point defense turn when he blinked up into the natural and whatnot. But his gut instinct is so good that even when he loses like that slightly a weird trade in that regard, he continues to go, and he continues to try to pounce on anything he sees out of position or he sees a weakness in some way. His gut instinct is so good, and he is able to take that composition that's not technically supposed to do well against Mech. Like, you're not supposed to do that on paper, but he still makes it work a lot. I've seen him do this versus Terran Mech all the time. Like, this is his response. He doesn't sit back and go into like mass bases and turtle. He doesn't go into the double robo immortal Colossus, or not Colossus, charge lot Archon stuff that a lot of people do. He drills really hard really early with Blink Colossus, and he makes it snowball. He gets one good engagement and he snowballs it. His gut instinct is extremely good. That's probably the biggest thing other than his micro.
All right, well, let's talk about these games between Parting and Gumiho. Nathanias, there seems to be a growing popularity in the use of tanks in TVP, right? You see it in game one. I mean, go ahead.
Gumiho likes tanks.
Gumiho.
I don't know. So it's one of the reasons why I like Gumiho. Like, he makes tanks work more so than I'd say like tanks are becoming a thing. Gumiho has been doing this for a while. I referenced a game on the panel before his match. Actually, he played a really cool Marine tank style against, I think it was either Super or Panic in the GSL last season. The game was on Catalina, and he pushed the third base using siege tanks, like kind of using the terrain a bit where you couldn't really like target the tanks, because like the bio is supposed to be that force that like kind of pushes you back. But, like, Gumiho does this, and he makes it work to an extent. I've never been able to make it work. I usually just end up hating myself when I use it versus Protoss. I don't think it's particularly good, but you know, in a weird way, it could actually end up becoming more useful if Terrans continue to play adapt to the Maru style of just not building any Vikings, where you might as well throw that extra little bit of gas you have. Like, if that's your thing, like, I guess maybe there's an opportunity for it to work, but it's a very nuanced thing that people have tried and failed with for a long time. So yeah, I thought it was really cool. I don't think it's about to become a thing, but I wouldn't mind if it did.
No, definitely not. I don't think it's going to become meta at all. I do think that I've seen it more the last 8 months or so, sparingly, but still more than maybe over, you know.
It's good on those maps. It's good on those maps too.
Yeah.
I think the only reason why we might see more tank-based play this season is because of the maps. I was talking to Wax Angel while the guys were actually like casting the games on the panel. I basically told him, I'm like, well, I think Cactus Valley, either the high ground area by either third, is really good for pressuring with tanks. And I thought Echo as well is really, really good for siege tanks because of all the different places that are blocked by rocks or just like not pathable. Where you can put tanks on high ground, or even outside the natural, that low ground area is pretty useful.
By the third.
Yeah, and we'll see that.
By the third or the natural, I think, because the natural is that cliff area. Like you can siege under the cliff in TVT. You take early damage and they get under there. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, that's really abusable.
And it just went to an ad, of course. All right, so we'll wait for that ad to finish before we watch this clip.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. See, I don't use ad block, but so
get
with
that turbo for your show, dude.
Right, I need it. All right, so with this, with the tanks though, right? So Gumiho likes his tanks. You're sacrificing production facilities and units for getting these tanks. It's very expensive, 150 minerals, 125 gas apiece, and Gumiho didn't just get 1 or 2 tanks, he had quite a few. What benefit in his play, when you analyze it, Nathanias, what benefit do those tanks provide against Protoss?
So the tanks were like used occasionally for a while, and the place there's like a very small niche that tanks have, and that the window for siege tanks against Protoss is over 99% of the time once charge is done, because then the zealots will cause you to kill your own forces, and unfortunately, unlike Zerglings, the siege tanks won't actually kill the zealots, so they'll just kill all of your own guys instead. I think zoning is really nice. Like the key element of tank play against Protoss, I think, was shown on the Expedition Lost game, where he positions them across the gap. This is something that happens so rarely that nobody has ever. I've never thought about this. I've never seen it, and I never would even think about it if someone built tanks on that map, because A, it's so rare, and B, no one does it anyway. But on Expedition Lost, he was able to siege with like 4 tanks, the main ramp from outside by like the rocks. He was able to siege that main base ramp and actually lost a lot of shit moving up and down that ramp to defend the bio with the back rocks. And I think if it weren't for the fact that he got DTs out during that, like I actually think that Gumiho was doing enough damage to bring that game back. Like he was actually making a comeback before the DTs caught him rallying his forces out on the map. Like,
I'm glad
if he didn't lose the Raven, I think he actually has a chance because of the tank play. I don't think anything else would have actually worked. There was the one moment where something like that is really useful.
I'm glad you brought that game in particular, because it was pretty exciting. You saw him take that engagement. He locked Parting in his base, and then Parting goes for the DT tech. Parting also had that third base up, though, that was up and running. Do you think that Gumiho should have been searching for that, a little more map awareness? If he had taken that out, would that have mitigated the damage being done by the DTs?
I don't think he could have gotten in as good of a position. I think that the specific spot where he put his tanks is actually so brilliant that it almost makes me want to unveto that map to try it against Protoss. But I know that
Protoss to play against.
Yeah, well, there's those Protosses will all probably push me on 2 bases anyway, and usually you just run into Zergs on that map who don't like going to 3 bases either. So I think it's cool. If he tries to push the 3rd base, it's actually a lot more open area for him to try to get a flank on those tanks. Like where he was so difficult to push into. Like he needed the Dark Templar to stop that. Like that's at least that's how I feel about it. Like, that was a brilliant move by Gumiho, and I don't think there's many other spots like that on any of the maps where you can be so effective with tanks.
No, and so there's the clip sent earlier to you guys, and we're going to show it to the viewers now, is where Gumiho is pressing he takes out the 3rd base on Cactus Valley, and he's taking out the 3rd base, and now he's going for the natural, and he sieges up at that low ground that you were talking about on Cactus Valley by the natural expansion, and we'll play that right now. But he sieges up down there, and there aren't enough storms available, right? So he's sitting there, he's waiting, he's got his siege tanks on the low ground, and I feel like with that small bioforce, if he had readjusted his tanks to the high ground, he could have taken out that Nexus faster. I know at this point we're getting into a little bit, it's more like Wednesday afternoon quarterbacking than really analyzing the gameplay, but what do you think about his situation here? Do you think he should have been a little more aggressive with those tanks?
In this position, like trying to move them forward a bit more is always tricky. Like once you have the tanks sieged up, there's very little that you can do positioning wise, because it takes 4 seconds to unsiege and then 4 again to resiege, which is enough time for the Protoss to like attack you.
Right.
Like I think as a Protoss player, you should always be looking for the moment when the Terran unsieges. I think he just extended a little bit too forward with his bio. Like both players are on 2 bases, which is an ideal scenario for Terran, in my opinion. Like because he's not playing a drop style, he doesn't have to worry about the fact that group partying can very easily cover both of his bases. He just pushed a little far. Like he could try to inch the tanks. I wouldn't mind that. Like that tank positioning was really good as well. And I like that he had the Widow Mines covering it because it makes it very difficult for him to try to just run through with Zealots. If he keeps his bio alive, then the tanks have enough to buffer for them that he shouldn't actually be able to push into that. And even when he like shows like at the end of that clip, when the rest of the bio shows up, like still cleans house. Now imagine if he still has like all those siege tanks.
Right.
And I think that he's in a game-winning position from that point. So really, Gumiho, he just tried to force a bit much. Like if there was a 3rd base, then he has to do something. Like if you're 2 base versus 3, then you're fucked if you don't kill him there. But if both players are on 2 bases in a situation like that, if you're Gumiho and you have the guy locked down, worst case scenario, obviously Partying was building a War Prism at the end of that. Like worst case scenario is that you're both mine out, but you can move float your command center over anyway because you have the contain on the other guy. So you don't actually completely starve to death. So yeah, it was interesting. I think moving the tanks up wasn't the key issue in that game for Gumiho.
Yep. So one last thing about Gumiho's play was the consistent use of the Raven. All 3 games, all 4 games. Sorry, we saw the Raven play. It's a lot of gas. It's 200 gas in the early game. Do you think that adds enough value with the PDD and the snipes on the observers in the early game to justify going for that?
I'd like to hear as well Gemini's thoughts on this, because to me, the reason why this looks cool and I don't like to do it anyway is if you open Raven, like if you go really fast Raven, you can have it out in time to deny most mid-game scouting. But if you open Raven, it's immediately clear to the Protoss that you went for some variety of 1-1-1 and you're not doing a very fast mine drop. So it's like everything that's normal for Protoss could handle anything that you would try to do. So the scouting is delayed, but because you went for 1-1-1, the Protoss players should also be aware that you don't have fast stim either. So like if you get sniped by a Raven, assuming that you didn't just walk your observer into it without looking at your observer, like if you don't realize that it was a Raven, then maybe you're kind of fucked. But I think as a Protoss, as soon as you see the other guy has a Raven, you know that they have late stim, they're probably on 2 bases, and they're not like gonna be like, it's not like a mine drop play because the Raven takes so much time and resources.
Gemini, your thoughts?
There's something that Maro's been doing a lot. I don't know if you've seen any of the games. I haven't seen like the full extension of the games. I just know that he's been doing it. I saw a couple clips where he has done it, where I'm not sure when exactly he gets the Raven, but he does this. He gives it with the drop. He does like the normal 4-minute effect drop that you would normally do. That usually is already pretty difficult to deal with unless you have your whole army there to deal with it. But he has the Raven in there now to do point defense drone on that. Yeah. So now even if you have stalkers there to intercept, they can't do it either. The bio is guaranteed to land, and that's a really effective drop. And there's not too much that I feel you can do to stop that without catching the Raven off guard before that. So I think that is a really cool, interesting new thing that you can do with Ravens now. I'm not like I always wonder why Terrans never like experiment with that kind of stuff earlier. Like I always thought the Raven has those kinds of uses for a while with point defense being so good. So in those situations, I think that this new appearance of the Raven in PvT bio is really interesting and refreshing. But getting it like I don't remember exactly when he gets it in the build. So what Nathanias said is on point though with the how if the Protoss sees that you have a Raven early, they know exactly what you open. They can eliminate so many factors in what you're doing. There's not going to be a mine drop. Maybe there's going to be Hellions, but it's not going to be like a super fast drop, but it might be just like a run by. There's not going to be any sort of 3 racks play. You don't have to worry about that. There's not going to be obviously fast engineering bay unless they want to do it to defend oracles for some reason, but I don't think that's going to come into play. You can cut back on a lot of things. So it's all about if like the benefit to getting it early is negated if you have to try to keep it a secret, because the whole point of the Raven early is to deny scouting or to do some kind of fancy or really early drop play or something like that. So I'm not sure if getting it super early, unless you're going for mech and you don't care if they know that you're opening like that, I don't think there's a good benefit to it. I have to look at the Mario games exactly to see when he gets it to understand it completely, but using it in that mid game is interesting.
It's really tricky to get the Raven. Is like my closing comment on this is that getting a Raven itself is actually kind of hard, because if you're playing standard bio, you actually are strapped for gas like super hard. Like I know like everyone talks about like how bio is basically pure minerals, but if you don't go for like if you don't go for like a mid game or later game type thing, if it's in that phase where you're trying to be aggressive with bio before there's a lot of Colossi or Storm, you can't afford to just, because you need medevacs, but also the gas that would go into the tech lab and the Raven itself is going to potentially delay your armory for +2. Could delay, I guess, any of your other upgrades if you're going to get it super fast. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I'd love to. If there was a smooth way, I'll say this: if there was a smooth way for me to open somewhat aggressively against Protoss without cutting too much economy, and I could get a Raven out, I would probably mix that in as like a regular opening, because a Raven does give a lot of utility and usage, but you have to cut so much to get it out that in the regular average game, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, that getting a tech lab on a starport while also having to make medevacs consistently to not die and stuff, it's like super hard to try to fit that in. I'm guessing you didn't see the Mario games exactly, like.
I've seen some of it. Most of the games I see, Mario just drops on top of stalkers anyway without
it.
So
I know, but like
fucking crazy.
PDD is like overkill almost, but like yeah, whatever.
All right.
I need to see exactly when he adds it in to see exactly if it's good or not.
Well, guys, this is about to wrap up our post show for DreamHack tour, that French word. So before we do that though, Nathanias, I'll start with you. Parting showed incredible play, incredible control, decision making. He was parting that we expected. He brought himself to the tournament, and no surprise there. Is he the best Protoss in the world? And do you think he rivals Life for the best player in the world?
This is the part where I say I'm really, really sad that SKT still owns his pro league rights. I can't say he's the best. He is top 3, but I don't want to put Parting over CJ Hero as much as I think CJ Hero is. Yeah, because I think CJ Hero is the best personally.
Okay.
But I think him and Parting are like neck and neck. Parting might even have like better results recently, like the last week, but I don't know. I think it's something where it's like, even if they played each other and Parting won, I wouldn't be 100% convinced. I'd like to see how both of them do over the course of this year.
Okay. PengWin, what are your thoughts?
I think it's too early to call him the best player in the world, mostly because when he goes abroad, like, I would say, yes, he's probably the best player abroad right now, because he's doing insanely well. He's doing really well online. He's doing really well in Europe, but he's doing well in Korea. Like, he did get to the final of GSL, but at the same time, you also have to look at some of the more lackluster performances. Like, he went out round 1 in SSL Season 1. He went out round 1 in the Kespa Cup. He didn't make the round of 8 in SSL Season 2 either. Like, I don't think we can call him undisputed best player in the world until he's dominating in Korea. And he just isn't there yet. So I think he's, like Nathanias said, he's absolutely one of the best players in the world. Maybe he's the best player in the world, but we can't say so without a shadow of a doubt until he steps up his performance in Korea just a little bit more. And I think a very, very important part of that is going to be his performance in GSL Season 2, because he's still in GSL Season 2. He advanced, but even there, like, he only advanced second in his group. He almost faltered to Dark in the final match. He almost didn't make it out of the round of 32 there. So, and I mean, we're comparing him to, like Nathanias said as well, we're comparing him to CJ Hero mostly. And even to a lesser extent, Stats is also looking really, really good recently. I mean, I wouldn't call Stats as good as those two yet, but he's definitely a contender to be, like, neck and neck with them over the course of the next few months. And if we look at the Korean results, like, it's just CJ Hero is just playing better. He got round of 4 GSL last season. He won the Kespa Cup. He's still in both SSL and GSL this season. So I would say that maybe they're around even, but I would give CJ Hero the edge.
All right. And last but not least, Gemini. I know it's anything but sacrilege and blasphemy for you to say that, Liquid Hero isn't the best thing since sliced bread, but Parting, where does he stand in your eyes?
They said it well. It's neck and neck between Hero and Parting, CJ Hero. I have to clarify this apparently. If you look at just results recently, people are like, oh, Parting, he's winning freaking everything. He's winning Gfinity, DreamHack, some other tournament, I think, too. I don't remember the name. But, he's been winning a lot. But it's overseas, and Hero isn't going overseas that much right now. He's focusing completely on Korea. He's doing extremely well in Pro League. He's dominating in Keswick Cup. He did a ridiculous good run in that. The games versus Sulky, some of the games he came back in that were, unreal. I can't even understand how he won that Expedition Lost game. It is out of my mind how he actually won that. He like you said, he's in the round. He got the round of 4 in GSL. He's still in both of those in GSL and SSL this season. So I'm gonna say Hero is at the moment a little bit better than Parting. Even in if we look at SSL, the reason Hero is still in it is because he beat Parting twice in that group. So I would say CJ Hero is very, very slightly above Parting, but very super small. They're very, very close.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. This has been the late game DreamHack Open post show. We're going to now go into about a 10 to 15 minute break. We're going to get set up for the second part of the show. We have Destiny, Jack Attack, Zombie Grub, nice username, and some of these fine fellows sticking around as well. So we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. Probably going to run an ad or two, and then you're just going to see a countdown timer on the screen. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you in a few minutes.